millennium of Ethiopian monastic culture. Ethiopia, where it all began, is an encyclopedia of geology and cultural geography. Immortalized in the words of the Greek poets, Ethiopia is a living book in which we may contemplate the whole story of humanity. According to contemporary evolutionary science, this story begins millions of years ago when man's earliest ancestors first appeared in the country's northeastern Afar region. The Ethiopian celebration of Christmas, usually around the end of the first week in January, is a major event in the country. It was a privilege for us to attend this magnificent pilgrimage with thousands of Ethiopians from across all parts of the country. Tradition traces the introduction of Christianity in Ethiopia to the 4th or 5th decade after the birth of Christ.
Christianity came to Ethiopia in the early 4th century. Some traditions say that in fact it came during the time of the Apostles, but at all events it's been here so long that it has come into very close contact with the local civilization, and I suppose there was an Africanization of Christianity, so that it becomes much more in harmony with traditional African beliefs.
Although Christianity existed long before the rule of King Ezana of the Kingdom of Aksum, it took root and flourished after it was declared a state religion in 330 AD. Our journey begins at Lalibella, the 8th wonder of the world, where tourists flock to see the remarkable and world-famous rock-hewn churches. The only pre-colonial Christian church in sub-Saharan Africa, the Ethiopian Church has a membership of between 40 and 45 million, the majority of whom live in Ethiopia, and is thus the largest of all the Orthodox Oriental churches. According to legend, King Lalibella of the Zagwe dynasty built the churches in the form of the Jerusalem of his dreams. It has also been said that the rock churches were the result of collaboration between humans and angels. In the Church of Beta Medanialim, the centuries-old paintings and architectural designs reveal the roots of Ethiopia's artistic heritage. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church has a standard pattern of worship in adherence to canonical directives. The modes of worship are formally fixed for holy days, monthly saint days, Sundays during the fasting season, as well as common days throughout the year. People are gathered from all over the country to celebrate this 3-day-long ceremony called Bezakulu, or Birth of Christ. Most of the people are easily able to accommodate themselves in the church compound for several days. On the eve of the birth of Christ, there are prayers and communal singing of the hymns of Saint Yared. Among the most fastidious, prayers extend throughout the night, attended by the burning of incense and the illumination of hundreds of handmade candles. During this unique gathering, the personalities of hundreds of the faithful are played out against the strains of trumpets and ululating women. This is a very special occasion for us to observe and to be part of. A perpetual moment in time in which your sense of self is absorbed into a timeless ritual of African communality. At Lalibella, the commemoration of the birth of Christ is typical of Ethiopian Christianity, characterized as it is by syncretistic accommodation of indigenous traditions and canonization of native Ethiopians as martyrs and saints. King Lalibella himself was canonized in the Ethiopian Church. It is 3 a.m. in the morning, and yet most people are alert and attentive. Some are reading the Psalms of David, some are in audible prayer, while others repose in quiet contemplation. On the morning after the celebration of Bezakulu, people go about their everyday occupations and activities. One such activity is art painting on animal skins. Here, for example, a young artist shows us a goatskin parchment. As he points out, the goatskin is naturally thick, but it has to be thin because thin parchment is better for writing. There are 11 rock-hewn churches at Lalibella, among which the largest, the Bete Medanialim, is the scene of a spectacular annual pilgrimage of the faithful. Neglected in recent years, the Bete Medanialim is now being restored by work under the auspices of UNESCO and the Ethiopian government's Authority for Research and Heritage Preservation.
The monuments we have, as they age, if not proper treatment is engaged.
Ato Jonas Desta is the Director General of the Ethiopian government's Authority for Research and Heritage Preservation. We spoke to him about the government's approach to the country's monastic heritage.
Because this country is indeed historic, we have lots of not only monuments, but ancient cities which are buried underneath. So we need to explore it. When we explore it, we need to engage professional values in trying to counter the natural deterioration rate and the artificial impacts which are really happening on these monumental values.
Seldom has religious doctrine and design been as closely related as we see in the Ethiopian churches at Lalibella. Dr. Brahanu Gizau explains.
Showing the different levels, the first story, second, third floors, were indicated on a cross. And just like we at this modern time have got a blueprint, which is designed by an architect. In those days, the easiest way to communicate with the Masons was to show them by the crosses. So when you're doing this, you are doing the first level, the second level, the third level. I did some analysis on that. And that was a very amusing and very interesting and creative way of bringing a structural design of a monument like that, for example.
Monasteries in Ethiopia have been centers of education and spiritual practices which includes self-exile from worldly life and the seeking of God's kingdom. Whereas some contemporaneous monasteries in Europe eventually became universities, in Ethiopia for over 1,000 years, monasteries remain unchanged. The monastery of Debre Libanos, founded in the 13th century by the Ethiopian saint Abuna Tekle Haymanot, has for centuries been Ethiopia's leading center for monasticism. The center is also known for its resistance to the fascist Italian invasion of World War II, during which there was a massacre of thousands of monks. Ethiopian monasteries dedicate themselves to full practice of spirituality and mysticism. This is quite unlike the transformation of some European monasteries into latter-day breweries, wineries, and distilleries.